You know that feeling when you're staring at a spreadsheet of specs, wondering if you're about to throw a lot of money at a machine that will sit idle most of the day or, worse, won't handle the workload you need? It's that hesitation that makes any tech purchase feel risky, especially when you're trying to future-proof a workstation for AI-heavy tasks, 3D rendering, or even high-end gaming on the side. You want something that won't break the bank on upgrades, but you also don't want to end up with a box that looks impressive on paper yet struggles when you actually load a complex model or render a 4-minute video. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. Let's talk about the Lenovo ThinkStation P3 Tower Gen 2. This isn't just a desktop you plug in and call it a day, it's a full-size tower that Lenovo markets as a performance desktop PC with AI acceleration. At first glance, the headline numbers an Intel Core Ultra 9285 vPro processor, 256GB of DDR5 RAM clocked at 6400 MHz, a 2TB PCIe Gen 5 NVMe SSD, Wi-Fi 7, and Windows 11 Professional feel like a cheat code for any creative professional. But the real question is, does that stack translate into tangible benefits for the everyday user, and where does it start to feel like overkill? If you're a freelance visual effects artist, a data scientist who runs large-scale models, or a small studio that needs a reliable machine for both heavy simulation and occasional game development, the ThinkStation P3 lines up nicely with your needs. The Core Ultra 9285 is built on Intel's latest Xeon-class architecture, which means it supports a higher number of cores and threads than most consumer CPUs at a similar price point. In practice, that shows up when you're multitasking between Photoshop, Blender, and a Jupyter notebook. Each of those apps can claim a slice of the CPU without the system grinding to a halt. The 256GB of DDR5 isn't something you'll need for basic office work, but if you regularly work with massive texture libraries or train machine learning models that sit in RAM, that capacity eliminates the dreaded out-of-memory crashes you've probably encountered on smaller rigs. The 2TB Gen 5 SSD is another area where the headline spec becomes a practical win. Gen 5 drives are still relatively rare in pre-built desktops, and the jump in sequential read-write speeds is most noticeable when you're moving large video files or loading complex scenes. In a real-world test, copying a 200GB project folder took under a minute, and opening a 30GB Unreal Engine project felt almost instantaneous. For anyone who deals with large datasets daily, that reduction in wait time adds up quickly, especially when you're on a deadline. Now, let's be honest about the downsides. First, the price point for this configuration is firmly in the professional-grade bracket, which means it's not the best fit for a hobbyist who only dabbles in occasional 3D work. If you're just looking for a solid gaming PC, you could get a comparable gaming rig with a high-end consumer GPU and a cheaper CPU for a fraction of the cost. The ThinkStation's strengths lie in compute and memory bandwidth, not in raw graphics horsepower out of the box. Lenovo does not bundle a top-tier GPU with this model, so you'll have to purchase a dedicated graphics card separately if you intend to game or do GPU-accelerated rendering. That adds an extra cost and a step in the build process that some users might not want to handle. Toolless expandability is a nice feature that Lenovo highlights, and it lives up to the claim. The tower opens without any screws, and you can slide in additional storage bays or a second GPU with minimal fuss. That convenience is a real time saver if you plan to upgrade later. However, the chassis is still relatively bulky, taking up a full tower footprint that can dominate a home office desk. If you have limited space, you might need to allocate a dedicated area just for the machine, which is something to keep in mind before you order. Thermal performance is another practical consideration. The P3's cooling system is designed for sustained workloads, and in extended stress tests the CPU maintained its boost clocks without throttling, thanks to a fairly aggressive fan curve. The downside is audible fan noise under full load. In a quiet studio environment, you'll hear a steady hum that can be distracting during voiceover recording sessions. While the noise level isn't unbearable, it's noticeable enough that you may want to place the workstation a few feet away from your microphone or invest in a noise-dampening enclosure. Security and manageability are where this machine really leans into its business-ready label. The vPro capabilities let IT departments push updates, manage assets remotely, and lock down the system with hardware-level controls. For a freelancer, those features might feel like overkill, but for a small team that needs centralized management, they can save a lot of administrative hassle. Coupled with Windows 11 Professional, you get BitLocker encryption and group policy support right out of the box, things that are often add-ons in consumer-grade PCs. One hidden trade-off you'll encounter is the lack